Good day to you all, and thank you for coming to another video here on the channel of the 0%. A lot of you who are inside of the Patreon courses are now ready to start exercising how to put together the actual unit certificates that is going to be given to the real beneficiaries that you have decided to be a part of your express trust. That could be companies, that could be unincorporated associations, it could be your children. You may have property that you want to pass on to them. You may have certain assets within your life insurance policies that you want to turn over to them. And so today we're going to show exactly how to further express that within your trustee minutes and how it will look if you were to develop some form of a certificate. It's kind of looking like a stock certificate that an LLC would give someone who's going to hold shares in the company. But there is different language on there, and I will show you what that looks like. So, what we're going to do first is read about what the certificates are and um, its jurisdiction, its power, what it can and cannot do. We're going to check out a book that has been circulating on the internet for quite some time called The Wise, Concise Trustee Handbook. It's available to you on the internet. Just type in Wise, Concise Trustee Handbook. There are more than one version. We are going to take a look at the 2006 publication. Now, if you are a part of the Patreon community where you are enrolled in the courses, freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior, or you may be in the complete zero tax liability tier where you have access to all of the content like a Netflix or HBO Max subscription where you can binge watch all of the content and get through the process that way. If you were to be a Patreon member and you go to the website here, simply just click on the tier that you are linked to. You have to be at least within the freshman class. So let's just say you are in the freshman class. You'll click on that and go ahead and sort from oldest to newest. We already have that. And scroll down. You will find right here the freshman introduction to trust. Right? This is the video up top here. Down below, you will find the attachment, the Wise, Concise Trustee Handbook, for you to download and read along. So, without further ado, let's get into reading that specific section on certificates from the book. It says, what may come as a surprise is that any trust may divide its trust property into shares and issue certificates. The power to issue certificates and bonds and employ the use of a seal never has been restricted to corporations. It is well settled law that whatever else most corporations possess beyond their artificial entity and the right of suit in the corporate name is a mere incident or consequence of incorporation, and not a primary constituent. This may include the power of issuing transferable shares, limiting liability of its officers, using a seal, making bylaws, purchasing lands and chattels. Now, chattels falls in lines with bonds, birth certificates, and holding those inside of your trust as well, perfected by the promissory note that we've put together, all of which are merely the recognition and adoption of natural common law rights any person sui juris may exercise without permission, much less a charter from the state. The court in Warner v. Beers clarified this principle most effectively. There are several very useful and beneficial accessory, also spelled accessory, powers or attributes very often accompanying corporate privileges, especially in moneyed corporations, which in the existing state of our law, as modified by statutes, are more prominent in the public eye. and perhaps sometimes in the view of our courts and legislatures, than those which are essential to the being of the corporation. Such added powers, however valuable, are merely accessory. They do not in themselves alone confirm a corporate character and may be enjoyed by unincorporated individuals. Such a power is the transferability of shares. Such, too, is the limited responsibility, liability. So, to the convenience of holding real estate for the common purposes, exempt from the legal inconvenience of joint tenancy or tenancy in common. Everyone who has real estate and the title to the property is registered or recorded in your first, middle, last name, or your LLC, or your S or C corporation, anything that's considered an artificial entity that is outside of what a natural person is, and only an express trust is a natural person. If anything in your title to real estate is recorded in those names, you are what's called tenancy in commons. You are a tenant on the land paying leasehold rents or ground rents or leasehold. If you're paying either of those, you are paying property taxes. But if you have property inside of the express trust, you can do a process called the assessor's reevaluation process, and that will remove the property off of the county tax rolls. And that's what you want to do. So again, there is the continuance of the joint property for the benefit and preservation of the common fund, indissoluble by death or legal disability of any partner. Every one of these attributes or powers, though commonly falling within our notions of a moneyed corporation, is quite unessential to the legality of the corporation, may be found where there is no pretense of a body corporate, nor will they make one if all were combined, without the presence of the essential quality of legal individuality. The trustee of an express trust is empowered by the terms and provisions of the trust instrument to issue certificates, not only of beneficial interest, but also of capital interest. So the trust is the beneficial owner of all of the assets, and it holds 100 units. Each unit is going to represent 1%. And therefore, the trust has entrusted a trustee to be the one to issue out those units to whomever you have decided to give that to. It says, generally speaking, beneficial interest is that which is held by the beneficiaries of the trust. In this case, it is the trust itself. Now, we do not want to list people within our families or individuals who represent a company that we're tied to. We don't want to list their individual names. We want to keep it anonymous. So that I will show you how we tie the trust certificates to them without revealing their name to keep it private. Generally speaking, beneficial interest is that which is held by the beneficiaries of the trust, who is entitled to a certain proportional share of the trust profits during the life or at the termination of the trust, while capital interest is that which is held by the exchangers who have invested property into the trust and thus becomes entitled to a certain proportional share of any profits and assets remaining at the termination of the trust. As a rule, the terms and provisions of the trust instrument control the manner in which beneficial and capital interest are to be administered and determine the rights of interest holders who, incidental to their acceptance of the interest, are bound under the trust instrument as such. But there are certain principles which govern these interests in construing the fundamental classification of the trust. For instance, it is held that where the certificate holders have control over the trust property and or administration of the trust affairs, the trust arrangement is deemed a partnership in which the shareholders become liable for the acts of the trust. Now, this is very true. However, I do not like to give beneficiaries or those that I want to give units to any power. Remember, we have the sole trustee, who is the actual sole trustee. They are a non-resident alien, which deems the trust to not pass the U.S. court test or the control test. So therefore, the trust is tax exempt 100%. That sole trustee goes and hires another person to be a co-trustee to work on their behalf. And the only way to do that is for the sole trustee to create another trust instrument, which is going to be your trust enterprise, and place you as the trustee of that trust. And therefore, that is a fiduciary capacity. That it's also considered what's called plenipotentiary of power. So it is a second form of a contract that we issue. So what I'm saying is that's the person that's going to have more control of its own assets opposed to a beneficiary listed in one of these trust certificate units. Okay, we do not want to give that person to have any power. And we will stipulate that inside of the actual trustee minutes to show what the beneficiary or whoever is called the unit holder, what they can and cannot do. Okay. The basic principle is that if it is free from the control of its interest holders, then it is an express trust. This is commonly referred to by courts of equity as the control test. We just talked about it, in which control must ultimately rest with the trustees of the trust in order for it to be properly classified as an express trust. You do not want to give control to a unit holder who's holding the certificate. That shall remain forever in the hands of your foreign sole trustee. The well-settled principle applied by courts of equity is that interest holders by full legal title and control over the trust property being vested absolutely in the trustees cannot be considered partners nor agents, and therefore cannot be held liable for the debts of the trust in the manner so done with partnerships and agencies. Furthermore, the certificates have no determinable fair market value, and therefore no gain or loss is recognized until the cost or other basis of the property disposed of has been recovered. In Commissioner of Internal Revenue versus Marshman, the court held that fair market value is determined by property received by the taxpayer, not the fair market value of the property transferred by the taxpayer unto the trust. What's more is that certificates are considered not necessarily as chattels, but as documentary evidence of ownership and intangible rights. And in of themselves, they are the personal property of the holder, not the actual interest or share itself. This is contrasted with the certificate of stock, which courts have held may be dealt with in the market as a commercial document of value. Do you see that? Whoever is held as a unit holder, if they so chose, whatever the units are representing, whatever the collateral is, that can be used as a commercial document of value, which means it could be sold. Money now, and they receive money later. We'll have to get into that another time. But the courts also hold almost I'm not going to even say this word for right now. My brain is having a fog. That the presence of a certificate of stock within the jurisdiction gives no power to take the rights evidenced by the certificate. Unlike stock, however, the interest in an express trust cannot be traded without the prior approval of the trustees of the trust. So your trustee will have to issue the certificates to whomever you have decided to give that to. I take it a step further and I start to incorporate what's called liaisons. I need a third party to watch over this person and to make sure that they uphold the terms and conditions of the minutes. So let's take a look at the actual certificate. What does that look like? Here we go. This is just a basic certificate that you can grab anywhere online, or you can make your own however you want. I have several. The ones that I utilize actually looks like old banknote paper, the ones that Wells Fargo used to issue to their presidents and CEOs and things of that nature. And I actually like to use bond paper. It's very thick, so that way when I press my seals on them, it makes a great impression. So the example that we have here today, we're going to use Dasani Express Trust. And Dasani Express Trust is going to issue 30 units to an individual, sui juris, and we're going to do that without sharing their name. We would never know who their name is. We'll see what their name is in the actual trustee minutes, which is going to be a private document, but they are kept anonymous. So we have the trust certificate number, which is 621. And we have the units here, which are 30. It says trust unit certificate. This certifies that the bearer of the Colony of New York certificate of title number, this is a random number here. Now, what I want you to know is this is the birth certificate number. Okay, so let's say this is my birth certificate from New York. I was born in New York. Well, instead of placing my name here like you would see on LLC information or corporations stock certificates, instead of placing my name here, we're going to place the birth certificate title number. That's an identity given by the county that cannot be changed. So you want to use the current birth certificate information that you have for the one you want to issue 30 units to. I hope that's clear. Let's go down. It says the bearer of this certificate of title is entitled to 30 units of the Express Trust assets associated with Mass Mutual Life Insurance Company, policy number 220-220-789. Those of you who have caught that, what I just said. As created by the declaration of Dasani Express Trust, executed by Larry Dezuela and Loretta Dezuela. This is husband and wife. They are the settlers of the Dasani Express Trust. This is considered their marriage covenant. Now, Larry has his own express trust. Loretta has her own express trust, but they've come together and created a third express trust called the Dasani Express Trust and made this the beneficiary of the Mass Mutual Life Insurance Company. You'll know that I spoke about that in the previous videos on financials, talking about the finances, where we're coming. Is there going to be a crisis, an upcoming crash? And we talked about life insurance policies. So Larry Dezuela and Loretta Dezuela, they are the parties of the first part, and Pedro Visconti, parties of the second part. This is the foreign trustee, and their associates, subscribers thereto, of the third part, bearing date the 16th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2022, subject to the trust and conditions therein expressed and contained in Schedule A, Trustee Minutes 6, 1987. And transferable only on the books of the Dasani Express Trust, dated in the city of New York, the 12th day of December in the year of our Lord, 2010. So the Express Trust was established in the year 2010 on December 12th. So we have Pedro Visconti here. He is the sole trustee, and this is that person's signature. Now here, where you see the golden seal, you will be able to purchase golden seals and put it in this area right here. So that way you may take your seal and emboss it onto the paper. That's if you so choose. I highly recommend that you utilize a seal that you can press onto the paper so that way it is permanent. Okay, so this is the trust certificate unit. Those that are within the Patreon course, you will have the actual template to utilize this and change every aspect of this document here. Okay, but I do recommend that you go and get something different. You do not want to have the very same certificate out there. Okay, you do not want to do that. So now let me show you the actual trustee minutes. How do you express it? How do you explain the terms and conditions that you want the unit holder, aka the bearer, to go by throughout their life so that they can be worthy or pledge a certain fealty to receive 30 units of money contained within this mass mutual life insurance policy? Let's say you wanted to have 3.5 million as a death benefit in this policy, and you wanted to issue 30 million. Well, that's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of, I don't know, 1,050,000, 1,050,000, something like that, something in the millions. And from there, you can then express certain percentages of that 30 units to go to certain avenues. So that way they're not considered what's called a trust fund baby, running wild with all this money and just blowing all of the hard work that you have done to ensure general wealth preservation, generational wealth preservation. So what does the trustee minutes look like? How are we going to express this thing? Now, this is just a general example. Yours does not have to look like this. I'm just giving you an idea how to do this. Now, within the course, you have up to 5 minutes that I have given you to go off of. This will be considered minute 6 or minute 7, depending on the type of property that you have listed inside of your trust. Some of you have already converted your property, such as vehicles, within your trust, recording that certificate of trust within the DMV. That would be considered minute 6, and this would be considered minute 7, obviously. So it just depends on your unique trust organization. So what we have here is minute 6, minutes of meeting, other property exchange, non-real property assets, because we're dealing with the securities of a life insurance policy. This is an irrevocable trust organization. Now, I always start off with giving the specifics of this meeting. The time is very important, the specific day, the exact date, the parties who are here within the meeting, and the subject. The subject is equitable interest in certain securities. Why is it called securities? Because you have an insurer. The insurer gave their uncertificated security to begin this insurance policy, right? In that case, it is Larry Dezuela, the parents, the mother and father, and Loretta Dezuela. They both opened up this policy for the benefit of their heirs. So let's get into it. At this meeting, it is declared and acknowledged that the natural person, the Dazani Express Trust. Let me tell you why in law, they consider the natural person or the express trust a natural person. There is a public law. Let me show you really quick, make a quick detour here. There is a public law known as the Year of Bible. Public Law 97-287. In the year 1982, the current president at the time, he proclaimed 1983 as the year of the Bible, which means he understands that The Bible is based on different treaties that made the Bible come to life. And within the Bible, you have three parts to a person. You have the body, you have the mind, and you have the soul. A lot of times, mind and soul are interchangeable. So let's say we have body, mind, and soul, and then you have the spirit. Well, when the body dies, the spirit goes on, right? There's so many different religious orders out there that believe that. And here within the United States, as the president is declaring its independence and its constitution based on that biblical fact, they are accepting the three-parted nature of a person, of man or of woman. So when the body dies, the spirit lives on. So when we say an express trust is a natural person, in order to really be a natural person, you have to be something that lives on continuously. This is why people utilize express trust, because it never dies. It is considered an immortal person. The spirit lives on no matter what happens to the body. Even if the settlers of an express trust pass away, all of its assets still stays within the trust. The trust is a person, and that person will continuously live on. This is why when you state the jurisdiction of your trust, whether that's Florida, Nevada, it doesn't matter. All of those nations that come together within the United States of America and Congress assembled are backed by this public law to deem your trust a real natural person that never dies. Now, of course, your irrevocable express trust is termed for 25 years and then it will be renewed, right? But let's say I was the one who was the president and I created an LLC or a corporation. If I die, that corporation is completely done. It is dissolved. No continuation. But if I die after establishing a trust, that trust lives on as an immortal person. So immortal persons are considered natural person. Okay. Let's continue. The Dasani Express Trust, established on December 12th, 2022, is the beneficial owner of the Larry de Suela estate and Loretta de Suela estate, exercises its inalienable natural right derived from the Fourth Constitution of New York, 1894. The sole trustee, known as Pedro Visconti, parties of the second part, issues trust certificate number 621 in the amount of 30 units to the bearer, whose name is described on the colony, another word for colony is state or territory, of New York Certificate of Title number 104-489-83740-99. Just an example. Registered with the Registrar of Titles. This is the Register of Deeds in the county, otherwise known as the Recorder of Deeds, in the county of New York, New York, born on the 30th day of June in the year of our Lord, 1990. So this is the birth date of the one named in that birth certificate. The certificate of title is the birth certificate. This is how we state who we're giving the property to, the units to, without describing their name. We keep them private. Now, each unit shall represent 1%. The bearer of the trust certificate number 621 shall prove their worthiness and equitable right to receive 30 units of the net death benefit of the Mass Mutual Life Insurance Policy number 220-220-789. Again, we reference that here on the stock certificate or the trust certificate itself. Upon the death of the policy's insurers, this is the one who provided their social security number, right? AKA the uncertificated security, to the insurance company so that that way they can create a policy according to the likings of the insurers here, the parents. By presenting their Colony of New York certificate of title with trust certificate number 621 in hand to the express trust liaison. And this is where we get into that third party to be the enforcer of the terms and conditions of these minutes. So that way we prevent any trust fund babies going rogue with the money. There are certain steps and procedures that they must follow throughout the term of their life and throughout the term of the policy. The sole trustee shall entrust the liaison, Northern Trust Company. It could be whoever you want, someone that you trust dearly. It could be a company that you pay on a monthly basis or annually to uphold these provisions. By way of private contract, to act in a fiduciary capacity, to liaise the mutual terms and conditions, which proves the bearer worthy of the said equitable interest. The following shall be as terms and conditions for the bearer, 18 years or older. Section 1. The bearer shall maintain a trust enterprise bank account owned by an express trust for the transfer of 30 units, whereas the liaison shall be the public trustee to manage the account. Section 2. The bearer shall be free of any misdemeanors or offenses with the government of the United States, any state thereof, or any of its agencies or municipalities, beginning from the acceptance date of these minutes of meeting until the Mass Mutual Life Insurance Policy number has turned. Section 3. The bearer shall procure an annual physical and urine toxicology test in the presence of the liaison with acceptable results. Number 1, ethanol levels not greater than 100 milligrams. Number 2, blood alcohol content not greater than 0.04%. 3, no traces of bath salts, cocaine, hallucinogens, inhalants, heroin. Here we have inhalants again. You guys can go ahead and remove that. Marijuana, MDMA, such as ecstasy or Molly, methamphetamine, salvia, steroids, anabolic, tobacco, nicotine, and the like. Now, of course, you can express this as best as you can. You can further it with additional substances that are out there, and you can actually take the terms to another level. For this example, I said an annual physical. Now, all of these drugs can remain in your system for a couple of hours or 3 to 5 days. So obviously, you're going to have to get more in depth with how to enforce these rules and regulations, if you so choose. It is your trust. You do as you please. Section 4, the bearer agrees all 30 units shall be distributed to a non-MEC whole life insurance policy, yielding a minimum of 4% dividend, whereas the liaison shall be the insurer and the bearer's express trust shall be the beneficiary. So we're telling them that all 30 units is not completely available to you. It will be distributed to a non-modified endowment contract life insurance policy that offers at least 4% interest return. And this is going to allow them to have a cash value bucket, and they will also have a death benefit bucket. So you can also state how much you want the policy to be, how long you want it to have it, what's the term, how many years you're going to pay in the premium, and how much you want to have in the death benefit when that person passes away. So a non-MEC, if you haven't heard that, modified endowment contract, simply you're going to have to do your own research on this and contact a life insurance agency who can explain it to you. There's a couple of people on YouTube that are talking about this as well, but I'm not going to get into what it is, but you definitely want to have a non-MEC. Basically, you have a certain premium, and then you want to be able to have additional monies to go into the policy without causing some type of trigger. So you don't want to be maxed out, so to speak. That's what a non-MEC is. You're not going to be maxed out as to how much money you can put into the policy. Okay. Let your life insurance agent explain that to you. Section 5, the bearer agrees upon the express command of the Designing Express Trust, the liaison will invest 25 units as a policy loan from the non-MEC whole life insurance cash value to purchase a minimum of 5 residential real properties or a minimum of 1 commercial real property in any county, any state within North America every 3 years. All properties shall be acquired for the purpose of traveler accommodation or short-term lodging. So that's a term for Airbnbs and rental property. And you also want to have, let's say, your commercial property to be leased to other businesses. And that's just going to generate more wealth that pours into the life insurance policy to be saved and stored and protected from the US stock and all of the crashes that happens with having a fractional reserve system. So this is how you're going to do that. So let's say we in this example, we have 25 units that's going to be taken out. So that means there's going to be 5 other units remaining. Well, congratulations, such and such, who is the bearer. The 5 units is representing 5% of whatever was in the parent's death benefit, and that money is theirs. So they're going to have something, but at least a large chunk of it is going to be reinvested. And the best way to reinvest money is to be considered a landlord. He who has land is very wealthy, just like King Solomon in the Bible. It doesn't matter how much gold or silver you have or how much cash you have, that can be manipulated. So you want to have land. Land is the true value of wealth. It's one of the biggest reasons why the Department of Agriculture is doing what they're doing, coming from England over into the Americas and stealing land, charging taxes. And some of those taxes are considered blackmail tribute to the one that is controlling it all. The one above the Vatican, the one above every nation within the United Nations, and that is, I'm not going to say. We'll keep that for another day. Section 6, let's continue. Should the bearer become deceased before the mass mutual life insurance policy has termed, trust certificate number 621 in the amount of 30 units shall be transferred to the deceased eldest heir, upholding the terms and conditions of these minutes of meeting, and if there be no heirs, all said units shall be held in the Dasani Express Trust. Now, it can go to whoever you want. They are transferable, but this is just a stock base example of how that will look if that person passed away and they did not have any heirs. Section 7, should the bearer violate any of the terms and conditions of these minutes of meeting, shall constitute non-compliance of fealty to the Dasani Express Trust, the 1894 Constitution of New York, the Treaty of Marrakesh, and the Treaty of Tripoli. Now, the Treaty of Tripoli you can obtain and read on the avalonproject.com or their website. But the Treaty of Marrakesh, that is something that you have to obtain from the chancellors who are the gatekeepers of law libraries. There's only one way for you to get that. Now, you can reach out to Jonah Bay, and on his website, he has a package there that allows you to get a copy of it, certified copy of it if you like. But they are available in most law libraries that are within universities and state colleges. Some of those libraries, you have to speak a certain language to get through to that section to be able to search whatever you want. So the Treaty of Marrakesh is the first treaty that began every other treaty that affects North America and other countries or other continents. And it is the first treaty that has brought about all of the constitutions here in America, North America. Now, upon finishing Section 7, you may have other sections that you want to add here that you can think of. Remember, it's up to you. It is your trust contract. But you always want to end it with describing the place of meeting. Now, here we have the Trump Tower in New York, 1 Central Park West. But let's say you did a Zoom meeting between your foreign trustee and the beneficiary who's going to be the unit holder of the trust certificate unit. And let's say you're in a Zoom call and both of you guys are in different locations around the world. Whoever is the host of that Zoom meeting, that will be the basis of the place of meeting. Now, the meeting adjourned. Here we have 4:18 in the afternoon, which began at 2:37 in the afternoon. So be very precise. Time is very important when it comes to minutes of meeting. It says, with there being nothing further to state, the sole trustee calleth this meeting finalized, and all parties have sealed their mark below and confirmed their yes to be yes and their no to be no. The foreign trustee signs and dates. The unit holder, they sign and date as well. So last but not least, you would have your seal to provide as an impression on the paper. You can print this on bond paper if you like, but regular legal size paper will suffice to hold your embossers as you press them on, or you may have a stamp seal, whichever you like. Now, you can record this in the county. I recommend you do that as an amendment to your existing non-UCCs. If your county doesn't allow you to do an amendment to your existing non-UCC, then you're going to serve an additional non-UCC to get a separate file number, to get a separate book number, and to get a separate page number. And this, of course, is going to be under the same trust name as the secured party. You'll list the same debtor names in box 1 and box 2 on that non-UCC 4. Make sure you list the collateral to include the legal description of the property, the real property, the house. Nowadays, they're not allowing you to record financial statements without real property, legal description, site addresses, or parcel numbers in the collateral. You must do that for every piece of non-UCC form that you want to record in the county. All right, so with that being said, that's going to be it for this video. If you are a member, you will have access to this template here, and you may edit it however you so choose. But this is just an example of what that looks like. We've had a couple questions from you guys on what this part entails and how to do it. This is how you do it. This is how you perfect transferring property over to the next generation. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much. Take care.